Why all millionaires follow the Feyman Technique. If you're after a way to supercharge your learning and become smarter. Devised by a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, it leverages the power of teaching for better learning. The Feynman learning technique is a simple way of approaching anything new you want to learn. Why use it? Because learning doesn't happen from skimming through a book or remembering enough to pass a test. Information is learned when you can explain it and use it in a wide variety of situations. The Feynman technique gets more mileage from the ideas you encounter instead of rendering anything new into isolated, useless factoids. When you really learn something, you give yourself a tool to use for the rest of your life. The more you know, the fewer surprises you will encounter. Because most new things will connect to something you already understand. Ultimately, the point of learning is to understand the world. But most of us don't bother to deliberately learn anything. We memorize what we need to as we move through school, then forget most of it. As we continue through life, we don't extrapolate from our experiences to broaden the applicability of our knowledge. Consequently, life kicks us in the ass time and again. To avoid the pain of being bewildered by the unexpected. The Feynman technique helps you turn information into knowledge that you can access as easily as a shirt in your closet. There are 4 steps to the Feynman learning technique, based on the method Richard Feynman originally used. We have adapted it slightly after reflecting on our own experiences using this process to learn. Pretend to teach it to a child or a rubber duck. Take out a blank sheet of paper. At the top, write the subject you want to learn. Write out everything you know about the subject as if you were teaching it to a child or a rubber duck sitting on your desk. You are not teaching to your smart adult friend, but rather a child who has just enough vocabulary and attention span to understand basic concepts and relationships. Or, for a different angle on the Feynman technique, you could place a rubber duck on your desk and try explaining the concept to it. Software engineers sometimes tackle debugging by explaining their code. The idea is that explaining something to a silly-looking inanimate object will force you to be as simple as possible. Identify gaps in your explanation. Areas where you struggle in step 1 are the points where you have some gaps in your understanding. Identifying gaps in your knowledge. Where you forget something important, aren't able to explain it, or simply have trouble thinking of how variables interact, is a critical part of the learning process. Filling those gaps is when you really make the learning stick. Now that you know where you have gaps in your understanding, go back to the source material. Augment it with other sources. Look up definitions. Keep going until you can explain everything you need to in basic terms. Organize and simplify. Now you have a set of handcrafted notes containing a simple explanation. Organize them into a narrative that you can tell from beginning to end. Read it out loud. If the explanation sounds confusing at any point, go back to. Keep iterating until you have a story that you can tell to anyone who will listen. If you follow this approach over and over, you will end up with a binder full of pages on different subjects. If you take some time twice a year to go through this binder, you will find just how much you retain. Transmit, optional. If you really want to be sure of your understanding, run it past someone, ideally someone who knows little of the subject. The ultimate test of your knowledge is your capacity to convey it to another. You can present the material like a lecture. You can ask your friends for a few minutes of their time while you're buying them dinner. You can volunteer as a guest speaker in your child's classroom or your parents' retirement residence.